Good afternoon, John.
Good
Hey, John.
afternoon. How is everyone?
Very good.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
All to you, Paul.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye, Judy. Bye-bye, Francisque. John Clagett.
Sir Fanner, how are you?
I'm well. It's good to see you. I'm going to change glasses. These are my glasses that don't glare as much. It's great to see you, and congratulations on an epic Trans Am season.
Well, thank you very much. It's you can't leave yourself just thinking about that. I always look at the off season. It's typically about 100 days. And in there, you're carving out Thanksgiving and Christmas and weekends.
Yeah.
And there is all the stuff that you got to do between the season finale and the season opening, which is everything from sales season to budgeting to having all your materials prepared and come back at Sebring ready to go. So it's intense. The off season is intense compared to the this regular season.
It is, and at the same time, you've made progress every year with this series, and I'm so glad to see it, because it is, kind of at the origin story of my passion for road racing is the Trans Am. I think I've shared with you before, this is the first race ticket I ever bought myself, was to go to the Riverside Trans Am when I was a high school student in 1969, which was a few weeks ago. And I just remember being blown away by the intensity of it. And that carries on to this day, watching your season finales. This is just really amazing racing and amazing cars.
Well, it's kind of like one of the questions you got to ask is, why is Trans Am still relevant 55 years later?
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is that it was created as a place for the Mustang to race the Camaro versus the Challenger and the Barracuda. And while some of the brands and car makes are no longer there, the core is.
Yeah.
And that is still our core 55 years later. So from a branding point of view, we've been true to our brand of how we were created and where we are today, which makes it one of the few exceptions of a series that is still around 55 years later.
Yeah, it sure is. And you have some excellent racing drivers in both TA1 and TA2 and in your GT subcategories. But what we see now is we see a profound evolution taking place in the talent base that's coming into Trans Am. We have known entities that have won championships in other major racing series now racing in Trans Am, and Chris Dyson now being a two-time Trans Am champion. Forgive me for rooting for him; he's my business partner.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I look at who he's racing against, and wow, we're getting there.
Well, it's we are. I sat in on the last hour of seminars, webinars, and I was thinking, man, we're at the end of the old technology.
Yeah.
And where will we be in 10 years? How will Trans Am still be relevant? And those are open questions for us to plod through and get to. We've never been healthier than we are right now, with entries, records on our Western Series, entry records for our National Series, bringing what I would consider a generational new chassis to the Trans Am class. The Ave Riley piece that was built isn't just a small update from the 1980s. It is an absolute wonder of a new chassis that is for the modern day racer. And the TA2 is just such a unique environment of a cost capped scenario that has attracted the youngsters that are planning to go, not necessarily just to NASCAR. We have guys that are racing that have overtures to perhaps being Formula One guys.
Yep.
We have sports car racers like Thomas Merrow, who is a great champion, and Rafa Matos, a 2 or 3-time champion that is a former Indy 500 Rookie of the Year. So it's a blending of so many different walks of where the racers have found TA2, but it's very unique, would have been impossible to come up with the strategy to bring all of these walks together to find this to be the relevant place. But somehow, some way, we got it done.
Yeah, and it's a great mix of the on-track product is to be spectacular. I mean, watching the TA2 race, it doesn't take a genius to realize what you have there is really special in terms of the competitive energy in it. But what you also have in TA1 in particular, and I had a chance to look at this new Ave Riley chassis when I was at the Dyson Racing Shop recently, and it's just stunning. I mean, it feels like of this time, and the modular nature of that chassis too is going to serve you well going forward as it's adopted by your teams.
Yeah, what that was about was, if you go back to, say, a typical Trans Am entrant from 1980 or maybe even the 1990s, it was a guy that's going to have a maybe at-home race shop and build his car from the ground up, or buy a Bob Riley or a proto-fab chassis and tune on it and wrench on it and work on it and take it back after the races and redo it all. Well, there's not that many of those kinds of racers around today. There's the kind of the new modern racer wants to, I'll say, arrive and drive. There's more than just that, but there is a component of racing that they don't have the tech with all the modern things that race cars are now, with all the data. They want to just push buttons and say, oh, okay, it's time to change the oil, or oh, there's my setup for Mid-Ohio. There, okay, now we're done with that. There's my next setup for the next race, with easy transitions where they're not having to tear the entire suspension apart or the brakes apart. And that's what Ave and Riley built here, is a modular, very easy to maintain, very easy to adjust and set up. And so they think that's designed, and I concur that I think that's the modern racer that's going to be attracted to that car. And they're selling them. They're either up to 8, 9, or 10. And Gentilozzi is building a new car. Pancho Weaver built a new car that Boris said has done well in.
Yes,
so
very nice.
It's a class that still has a lot of new development going on, which is great. It's the relevancy of where we were in 2011 and when we started this over again was a lot of old bodyworks and a lot of old cars.
Yeah.
And so it took guys like Kerry Hitt of Advanced Composites companies to say, I'm going to invest well over $1 million to give you modern looking bodywork, to give Trans Am the relevant feel that it has, which attracted the competitors that wanted to feel relevant, not right like a relic or a vintage racing organization. And then you give them their bucket list of racetracks, iconic racetracks that they want to race at. And that was kind of our formula.
Well, it's working. And to me, there's something I don't see in most other racing series. We'll start with TA1 is these are remarkably fast racing cars with enormous horsepower. And I think that one of my strongest memories of the more recent Trans Am was being on Memorial Day weekend at Lime Rock in 2021, and getting up on the hill and just watching the Dyson Racing Mustangs. They sound like low flying P-51s on a strafing run, with this high pitched wail just, driving like bats out of hell down that front straightaway. And just the performance of the cars is visually exciting.
Well, this
the way
past
you don't
year is
see
when
in some other series.
we introduced the Pirelli 18-inch tire to the Trans Am class in 2022. And the cars were, 2 to 5 seconds faster per
Yeah.
lap than they ever were before. And you combine that with basically NASCAR engines that are not restricted,
Yeah.
that are somewhere at 850 to 900 horse, and they're beasts. And you then talk to the competitors, if they're not, wearing a manufacturer shirt because they have a manufacturer relationship, there's probably not more than a handful of competitors that have ever been in a Trans Am car that would not say Trans Am was their favorite race car ever. And, so when you get out of the politically correct thing to say or not say,
Yeah.
it's universal that a Trans Am race car is the beast of all time. And so it's worth it for fans to come see it. And that's just the top class. And then the TA2 class, with what we're doing there and the young guns, and seeing some 14 and 15-year-olds have success and winning races.
Yeah.
That's going to bring on more of those guys. And
Yeah,
so
that's the thing that's so interesting here, is you have some really young racers in TA2, and you had a very young champion in TA1 for several years here as well. And you're a place where people are revealing their talent early on in both series. And was that the plan, or is this just how it's turned out?
It's how it's turned out. I mean, I would love to say that we had this master plan that they each, have developed to be exactly what it is. But in racing, things change, and you just have to adapt. And that, I think, is one of our abilities of why we were successful, is we weren't just set in stone saying this is only thing that we're going to do. We try to listen to competitors, and I would think that that's one of the reasons why we've had success, is that we have an open dialogue about what it is that they like, what it is that we need to improve, and we're constantly, striving to be better. We, from where we were in 2012, when we were averaging less than 20 cars on the grid, and now we're at over 50 cars on the grid. We don't take any of that money and put it in the bank. We've reinvested it to make a bigger and better series every single year for the last 11 years.
It shows, John. It overall, the ethos of Tony Parella too has been to reinvest in the businesses that he's acquired within the motorsport space. And he's built a different business model that you're part of. Is that it stands apart in the landscape of racing in North America. It's just this mix of amateur and professional motorsports in your speed tour weekends. You have some standalone opportunity here and all this too, but overall, the fundamentals of the way the business works is different than, let's say, an IMSA or a NASCAR or an IndyCar or an SRO.
He's created a niche that
sure.
that works for him. And Trans Am can go off and do its own thing when it makes sense, like the Big Machine Vodka Music City Grand Prix, where we've added the Detroit Grand Prix back into the mix.
Right.
There's some other venues in 2024 and beyond that we're looking at that represent, additionally doing that same thing, branching out and taking the series solo. So it's a blend of trying to do the right thing that gives competitors a good marketing platform, iconic racetracks, great weekends that they can get, their marketing message out, and that's what we're about.
And you've had a great partnership with Pirelli here in building the series as well. And,
No doubt.
they're a world-class company, and giving you world-class product to run your series on. When I look at what we have now is Trans Am's a thing again. I hear people talking about Trans Am. It's as it once was. It's now included in the general conversation about motorsports. It's got an aspirational quality now in it that it deserves. So where do you go from here? What's next for Trans Am? And you're going into a different media landscape, a different business landscape. Mobility's changing. Manufacturers, you're not dependent on manufacturers for your funding, but you're living in their image with the cars you race. What's next?
Well, the what's next is a really good question. I think that, on the media side of things, I think we've got our pulse on where things are going there. And I think we'll have some exciting news to share with, consumers about how many more platforms they'll be able to find Trans Am on as early as 2023. Obviously, we got our work to do with the pony cars becoming either going to, like what the Mustang is now, an SUV in certain circumstances, or a Camaro going away. Yeah. We're going to have to adapt to finding a new foothold of, if it's not pony cars, is it going to be GT cars with a look? Is it, are we, we have on purpose, I would say, production cars racing. We have 3 different levels of tuning that sets XGT, SGT, and GT apart from each other.
Right.
And Chevrolet, through Turnkey Automotive, is coming up with basically a turnkey race car that you can have it prepped for either GT or SGT category. So I think we're in a good place on our production racing, and we're in a good place for currently where we are in TA2 and TA, but we're definitely having to take a look at the hybrids and electrics, and I felt like we're a little bit in the Stone Age compared to the last group that was on the webinar in the last hour with robotics and automatic cars that don't require pilots and stuff like that.
Well,
so
I'm not sure there's a big spectator market for that at this point.
No, but definitely,
I think you're in the right age, but it comes to making something exciting. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think 60s to about where we are right now. How many more years will this technology be at the forefront, and how do you bridge to the next, where this all goes? And so it's an open question that we'll find a good way to get there and keep our consumers, which are at many levels fans that come to the racetracks and people that buy race cars and race them with us, all still working with us.
Yeah, but there's a core spirit to what the Trans Am is, and the Trans Am's been through a number of platforms over the last 50 plus years. It hasn't been a constant pony car war, and the ability to adapt has been why this series is still here.
This is true, and we'll find.
So I think that looking at the pace of adaptation that I've seen in the overall Pearl organization since coming into the sport, that seems to be the number one thing that you guys do, and is to shape what you want to be as you're moving. That's a hard thing to do. And I think that where I'm going with this is that some of this is a competitive advantage. You're not trying to turn an ocean liner like NASCAR. You're in a speedboat. You can turn it.
We're very lean and mean,
Yeah.
but we got really good people on our team.
Yeah.
And that's one of the areas that we invested in as we had more competitors come to the party. We were able to invest it in good tech people and good marketing people and good race control staffing. And I'm very comfortable with the team that we have. And, we're bringing some things online in 2023 that are going to be great safety advances for how we manage races. So it's never a dull moment, Paul.
No, it isn't. But you wanted this, this is your passion. I know that since we met so long ago. And I am appreciative of the fact that you played such a large role in sustaining and ultimately bringing Trans Am back. I'm grateful to Tony for his commitment and investment in bringing back the series that I've loved since I first saw it. And the last couple of minutes we have here, I want to touch on one thing that I think is important, and that is being a Trans Am champion really matters still. The legacy of who's been a champion in this series, it's a list of greatness basically, and it's one of those titles that means something in the world. What do you think is the defining quality of the Trans Am above all else that people buy into and believe in? What's the thing that keeps you going and those who are investing in the Trans Am?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with its heritage. It's that it's a Americana in fabric.
Yeah.
And whether you're a guy that came to races and saw Donahue versus Parnelli versus Fulmer,
That's me.
or came along later in life to see Tommy Kendall versus Gentilozzi versus
That's
Fellows, those actually matter because
they do.
my paddock is full of people that got introduced to Trans Am by their father or their grandfather. And when they got the means to be a racer, which is money, that's where they went. They said, I want to be where that was. And I remember succinctly, David Pinteric won our Trans Am class at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Yeah.
And he got up on the winner's podium and he was crying like a baby. And so giving them that opportunity to be living the dreams of what they fantasize, I guess that's part of it, is very relevant to who we are and why we exist.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of meaning in what Trans Am is, and the fact that it's one of these last unbridled at the TA1 class series that's left on Earth, where you're not being performance balanced. You're basically building a ground-bound, cruise missile.
This is true.
And then you've got the TA2 class where it's just a knife fight every lap.
My backdrop is TA2 turn 1 at Watkins Glen this year.
Yeah. Well,
and I think there's 30, if it was a little bit expanded, there'd be 34 cars in that shot.
Yeah,
and
well, that does, as we say, a racer, that doesn't suck. But yeah, it is great to see the vitality and the vibrant quality of the series. And I, on behalf of the team here at Racer, we all appreciate what you've done. You know, Trans Am's been part of our story too, since the company began. And, you know, we even had back when we did a Racer of the Year, Bobby Kendall was our Racer of the Year for his success in Trans Am. And
11 straight victories.
yes, that's pretty remarkable, you know. And I think that when all is said and done, this era of rebirth and rejuvenization for Trans Am is going to be one of those things that racing, the lore of racing, this is a resurrection, and it in large part owed to you and Tony for your roles in bringing this great series back to where it belongs. I know there's more road ahead, but you're in the race solidly now for relevance and in the conversation, and that's important.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Paul. It's like I say, it's now the pressure of the off season. There's never a day where you don't have 100 things that you're trying to do. We are very lean.
Your season starts when, John?
Well, we're actually going to kick off with our first ever Sebring test days in mid-January, where we're giving all of our teams 2 days to bring their stuff to the racetrack. And it's not a new concept for a lot of series, but we've never done that before. And it's going to be an opportunity for some of our guys to bring along either young kids that are looking at what we're doing, or guys that have expressed interest to teams for the last year saying, I want to come try to do this. Well, we're giving them the perfect environment to get on the racetrack, see what their skill level is compared to the guys that are going to be winning races and championships. So that starts in mid-January, and then a month later, it's off to the races at Sebring.
There you go. Well, no rest for the, well, you know what I mean.
It's good. It's all good. It's what we're here for. It's what we do.
Yeah. You wouldn't do this unless you enjoyed the self-abuse.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, John. Always good to see you, my friend.
Same to you. And I'm sure we'll see you on the rebound. Hopefully we'll see you at one of our first races. And
well, that's my battle plan here at this point. So, you know, I forgive me, anybody that's watching this, for me being a Trans Am fanboy, but it is one of my not so guilty pleasures.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, John. Great pleasure to have you back with us this year, as always.
Registering on EPARTRADE is easy. To start, click on the Join for Free button on the homepage. First, search your company to see if it's already in our database. If you see your company on the list, click on it to select it. Then, choose Claim Company if you are one of the decision makers, an owner, marketing person, or main company contact. Or choose Join Company if you are an employee, and press Continue. If you couldn't find your company in our database, select Register a New Company. On the following page, fill out your name, email, phone number, job title, and choose a secure password. If you chose Register a New Company, you'll need to choose your business type. Select Supplier if you're looking to display products or services and connect with buyers. Choose Racing Business if you're looking to source new parts and connect with suppliers. Choose Race Team if you own or are a member of a professional race team. Then, enter your company name. Please provide a website, Facebook page, or LinkedIn if you have one, and choose to either claim or join the company. You can view and agree to our terms of use here. If you'd like to receive our weekly newsletter, choose Accept. Finally, click Register Now and your registration will be submitted for approval. An email will be sent to your inbox. Please confirm your email address and you will be approved shortly. Welcome to EPARTRADE.